Hello, children. I welcome you all for this session. We are going to learn a new poem today called the Ball Poem. It teaches us what is truly valuable in life and how to deal with harsh realities that hit us during the course of our life. Before moving further, let's get to know about the poet John Berryman. John Berryman was born in Oklahoma in the year 1914. He was an American poet and he was very well known for his display of varied emotions in his poetry. He was highly influenced by the works of Yeats and Shakespeare. We can sense a tinge of their style also in his works. His best known work is 77 Dream Songs. It's a collection of 385 verses which narrates a confessional story of an anti-hero. He was actually awarded a Pulitzer Prize in 1965 for this work. He was also awarded the National Book Award in 1969 for some of his other works. Let's get into the poem now. The ball poem is about a small boy who meets with his first loss when he loses his favorite ball while playing near a harbor. The poet is, in fact, standing aside and observing each and every expression of this child from some place nearby and tells the readers the reason why he did not go and console the sad boy. Let's read the poem once fully. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball is worthless. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. And no one buys a ball back. Money is external. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know and most know many days how to stand up. It's a simple poem, isn't it? So when you read it once, you get the broader idea immediately. Yes, as I told you earlier, it talks about the mental agony of a boy who has lost his cherished toy, his favorite ball. This is the general idea, but poetry is all about reading between the lines. There is so much of wisdom hidden in this poem. Come on, let's learn the deeper meaning of this piece now. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? The poet saw a boy playing happily with his ball near a harbor, but suddenly the ball slipped from his hand and ended up in the sea. The child is dumbstruck and he is helplessly standing there looking at his ball, knowing what to do next. The poet is also equally worried. He is clueless and he doesn't know what the child will make out of this situation. In the second line, if you see, the poet has used the word what twice. Why has he used it? He has used it to emphasize the pain and despair the boy is undergoing. I saw it go. So the I here represents the poet and he says he also saw it when it fell into the water. Merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. Merrily means happily. He says the ball happily bounced into the water and he can also see it floating away. Merrily is actually a human emotion, right? Whereas a ball is an inanimate object. The poet has used a poetic device here. I think most of you would have guessed it by now. But let's discuss about the poetic devices at the end of this session. No use to say, oh, there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down. So the first line is, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. Initially, the poet thought of consoling him by telling that there would be other toys that they could buy from the shop. But he soon realized that it would be just a temporary consolation to the kid. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down. He could see the pain in the boy's face. The ball must have been with him for a very long time. When it went inside the water, all his memories that he had with the ball must have flashed before his eyes, and that made him very desperate. The boy started trembling from head to toe when he realized the enormity of the problem. He would never be able to hold it in his hand and play with it again. It's a kind of a personal loss to him. All his young days into the harbour where his ball went. I would not intrude on him. A dime, another ball, is worthless. Intrude means interfere, and a dime is 10 cents in the US. It's a monetary unit. The poet decides not to interfere in the boy's situation because everyone will have to encounter such a situation one day or the other. This is called growing up. This is reality. The poet says, a dime, another ball, is worthless. He can buy another ball with money, but it is not going to solve the boy's problem. The child will not be happy with any other ball other than the one which he has lost. Now he senses first responsibility in a world of possessions. People will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. Possession means belongings that are dear to you. The poet sees some transformation in the child. The child seems to be coming to a realization that the ball is his responsibility. Since he lost it, he has to come to terms with it and grow emotionally strong. Actually, the poet is in fact happy to see the realization that is dawning on the boy. You must have all heard about how a butterfly comes out of its cocoon. It's a rather painful process, but only through pain and suffering it becomes beautiful and strong. If we try to sympathize and break it open, we are actually doing a permanent damage to the butterfly. The poet realized that the boy is also in a similar situation at that moment. People will take balls, balls will be lost always, a little boy, and no one buys a ball back. Money is external. The poet tries to tell that people snatch things away from us, or we will lose them ourselves one day. It's going to happen one day or the other. And money can never buy the emotions that are attached to it. Money is worthless when it comes to feelings. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes the epistemology of loss, how to stand up, knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. Epistemology means knowledge. The child is learning the significance of loss, and he is trying to understand on his own that life goes on even without the ball. The ball is not just a toy in this poem. It symbolizes our family and friends and all the other possessions we think will never leave us. But the reality is just the contrary, isn't it? We lose friends, we lose people, and we lose our dear ones when we grow. It is natural and it cannot be stopped at all. For a few people, this realization and maturity would have happened already. And for some, it would eventually happen. Yes, it's a tough reality, but we all should bravely gather our strength and stand up strong after every fall. This is a very beautiful poem. The boy here represents all of us, and the poet has taught us a valuable lesson by stressing the importance of taking life in its own stride and never lose hope. From alliteration to metaphor and imagery to simile, there are so many poetic devices available in literature. Have you ever wondered why a poet uses poetic devices? It's basically because these literary devices they make the readers relate with the poetry better. They are used by the poets to give a better understanding and through that leave a memorable experience for the readers. To put it simply, a poem without a poetic device is like watching an ordinary 2D movie. What is the difference between watching a 2D movie and a 3D movie? It's basically the clarity and the depth. A viewer who watches a 3D movie experiences clarity even better. The same thing applies here also. If a poem has poetic devices, appropriate poetic devices, then it leaves the readers with an everlasting happy experience. But overdose of literary devices is going to kill the poetry. It's just going, if you use the poetic devices carelessly, then it would spoil the mood of the poem. This poetry, the ball poem, is rich in clever usage of poetic devices. Let's see one by one. The first poetic device that we are going to see is called visual imagery. I'm sure all of you know that we have 5 types of senses. They are sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. Visual imagery appeals to the sense of sight. If it appeals to our hearing sense, then it is called auditory imagery. If it refers to the touch, then it is tactile imagery. If it appeals to our sense of smell, then it is olfactory imagery. Here, in this stanza, we have these lines. Merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. So if you close your eyes and imagine, you can visualize a ball that's bouncing towards the water. You get a vivid picture of the same when you read these lines. That's why it's called visual imagery. Personification is the next poetic device that we are going to see. Let's read the lines first. Merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. So what is personification? It's giving human-like qualities to inanimate objects. The poet has used personification here to describe how the ball has slipped away from the boy's hand and then moving towards the water. So, personification describes an inanimate object in human terms. The word merrily applies to human emotion. It's a human emotion. It applies to human beings only. But he has used it cleverly to show how the ball is bouncing towards the water. And that's why it's called personification. The next poetic device that we are going to see is repetition. You can easily spot repetition in a poem. Repetition is the simple repeating of a word in a single line. In this stanza, we can see the word what repeated twice in the same line. This is called repetition. The poet has used it here to display his concern and worry for the child. So, if a word gets repeated in the same line, then it is called repetition. The next one is anaphora. This linguistic tool is used to lay emphasis on the poet's point of view. There are 2 instances where anaphora is used in this poem. Let's see. What's the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? So this is one instance. And the next one is merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. So this is the next one. These 2 instances are examples of anaphora in this poem. What is anaphora then? It consists of repeating a sequence of words at the beginning of neighboring clauses. To put it simply, if the beginning of 2 or more consecutive lines begin with the same word or phrase, then it is anaphora. Okay, so you might ask me, what then is the difference between anaphora and repetition? Repetition is a repeating of 2 or more words in the same line, whereas anaphora is repetition of words or phrases in consecutive lines. Let's see about symbolism now. Symbolism is the use of symbols to represent ideas or qualities. The whole poem is a beautiful example of symbolism. Ball here is not just a toy. Ball symbolizes the memories of the small boy's childhood days. Let's see another interesting poetic device now. It's called an apostrophe. Apostrophe as a literary device is totally different from apostrophe as a punctuation mark. There's no connection between these two. It is a literary device in which a person is addressed who is either dead or physically not present. So in this stanza, it's given, balls will be lost always, little boy. The boy is not the listener here. The poet is talking to himself. Even though it looks like he's addressing the boy, the poet is not personally talking to him. So this type of usage in which a person who is addressed is either dead or physically not present is called apostrophe. Alliteration is words that begin with the same sound that are placed close together. Remember, alliteration is words that begin with the same sound and not the letter. Okay. So in the first instance, who has lost his ball? The sound ha is predominant. Okay. So this is alliteration, an example of alliteration. And the next one is no one buys a ball back. The sound ba is predominant here. That's why this is alliteration. Alliteration focuses readers' attention on a particular section of text. Alliterative sounds, they create a kind of rhythm and mood to a poem. Enjambment is the next one. We have seen so many examples of this poetic device so far. The poetry Dust of Snow and Fire and Ice had enjambment in it. Enjambment is continuing a line after the line breaks without punctuation. If one line flows to the next line without any punctuation, then it is called enjambment. So in this poem, we have what is he to do? I saw it go merrily bouncing. So its the first line is moving to the second line without any punctuation mark. That's why this is called enjambment. A metaphor is a figure of speech that uses symbolism. Metaphor comes under the broad umbrella symbolism. It compares two things that are similar and proves they actually have something in common. Metaphor gives additional meaning to a word and it brings out a powerful description to it. What is the difference between metaphor and simile? Metaphor is an implicit comparison, whereas simile is explicit comparison of two or more words. We can see the word as and like in simile. Here the word ball is a metaphorical reference to the memories of the child. Let's see about ascendton now. Ascendton is a writing style where conjunctions are omitted in a series of words, phrases or clauses. If a poet omits conjunction purposefully in a line, then it is called ascendton. In this line, a dime, another ball is worthless is given, right? Here, the word or, the conjunction or is missing. It has to be like a dime or another ball is worthless. Since the poet has not used the conjunction or here, it is an example of ascendton. Before we wind up, let's see the central idea of this poem. The boy in this poem thinks that the things that he owns will always remain with him. However, he has to lose them one day and bear the pain of its loss. We always feel attached to our possessions, right? And when we lose them, we feel sad and depressed. We cannot bring back the things which we lose. So the poet conveys that we have to accept this harsh reality and try to move on in our life without looking back. These are some of the frequently asked questions that you might see in your question papers. So go through it properly, children. That's all for today's session. Take care.